Dividing integers with integer chips. This digital lesson will give students a little bit more of a conceptual idea of what dividing integers means. And it starts with a definition of integers. They are not fractions or decimals. The red chips are negative, yellow chips are positive. And a real life example for dividing integers is in the game of golf. So it explains a little bit about playing golf. In the game of golf, the better score is the lowest score, and professional golfers often score in the negative numbers. Give students an idea. Par is the score that's a good golfer is expected to achieve on each hole. It sets a goal for how many times a golfer should hit the ball to make it into the cup. So hitting the ball less than par is an excellent score in the negative numbers. So it's just giving students a little background, real life example. And then if this professionals are playing in a tournament, it may be a 3 or 4 day tournament, they have to average their scores. And when they average their scores, they're often dividing integers, negative numbers. So they're given an example. Tiger played a golf tournament that lasted 3 days, and these were his scores. So students are going to use the integer chips, and they move them around, so they just click and hold, and they're going to show the score for each day. So the first day he got 3, so it'd be positive 3. So you just click and hold and put 3 chips under day 1. Day 2, negative 5, so they're going to have 5 red chips under day 2. And then day 3, negative 4, they're going to have 4 red chips. And then if they take all of the chips that they had on the previous slide and they line them up, a row of red and a row of yellow, they're going to add them together by taking out 0 pairs. So a 0 pair is just 1 red and 1 yellow that add up to 0. And so the total of his scores would then be negative 6. So they're just going to type negative 6. That's after they take out their 0 pairs. Now they have their negative 6, and they're going to divide by 3 because there were 3 days in the tournament. So they have to divide these evenly. So if they divide their negative 6 evenly, they'll have negative 2 in each box. So his average score would be negative 2. So then just to recap, Tiger's 3 scores, they may have to go back and look again. What were the 3 scores? They found the average by adding all the scores together. What was the total? And then if they divide by 3, he got an average score of negative 2. Now another example, this time Michelle, because Michelle Wee is one of my favorites. She played in a golf tournament that lasted 4 days. So this is another example. These are her 4 scores. They're going to use the integer chips to show the score for each day. On the next slide, they're going to take the total that they had of all 4 days, line them up, a row of red and a row of yellow, add them together by taking out the 0 pairs, and then they'll have a total score. They're going to take that total and they're going to divide it by 4 because there were 4 days. So that would mean there are going to be 2 red in every box. So her average score was also negative 2. So to recap, they're going to type in the 4 scores, one for each day, what the total was, and then when they divide it by 4, what was her average score. Now they're given an example here of what to do. With integer chips, if you're dividing the division of a negative number, so if you're dividing by a negative number. So what this means in this example is you have negative 8 and you're dividing it into groups of negative 4. How many groups are there? So if you divide that negative 8 into groups of negative 4, here's a negative 4 and here's a negative 4, you get 2 groups. So your answer would be 2. And then they're going to have a couple of slides where they have to show this. So a negative 12 divided by negative 3. So they're going to put this negative 12 into groups of negative 3, and their answer will be the number of groups. It'll be a positive number. Do the same thing on 17 and 18. And then the last part is what happens if we're dividing a positive by a negative. So one way to look at it is if the numbers are positive, it's going to be all positive, a positive 3 here, 9 divided by 3. And 9 divided by negative 3 would be the opposite of that. So 9 divided by negative 3 would be negative 3. So it's going to be opposite, the opposite answer. And then the next slide, they're going to show that. Okay, 8 divided by negative 4. Well, if we show 8 divided by 4, that would be 2 groups, would be 2. 8 divided by negative 4 will be the opposite of that, or negative 2. Next slide, they're just going to write negative or positive. So they're going to look back on these slides. What did they notice when they're dividing and the signs are different? What is the quotient, positive or negative? If they're dividing and the signs are the same, what is the quotient, positive or negative? So it just brings them to the rules, which are the same rules for multiplying integers. And then that follows up with the final slide where they're just going to type in the answer. Now they know the rules. Now they can find the answers to each of these problems. So all of the completed slides are on here for the teacher. If you want to assign this to the students, just make a copy. So File, make a copy of the entire presentation, but just delete the completed slides for the students.